Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with Larson Therapeutic Arts, and today we're going to talk about making chihulies. Which are these type of structures, kind of that glass-like mimicking. So first of all, let's talk about what you need. So you're going to need some acrylic paint. I have my Blick acrylic paint. Make sure that it's acrylic. Tempera is not going to work. And then you need some white glue. So Elmer's glue would do fine. Just make sure you have some PVA in the ingredients. Most white glues do have PVA in them. I need a paintbrush because this is going to blend and mix my color, and some wire and some scissors. The other thing is you will need some sort of plastic sheet to put under your wiring to create the shape. So you can see I've created the shapes here. I want to make sure my wire's as flat as possible to those sheets. You can see we're going to dry all the Chihuly pieces on a plastic surface. So if you don't have like a sheet protector at home, you could do some parchment paper or even some saran wrap wrapped tightly around a surface would work just fine. So I've pre-mixed 3 colors. Okay, so I've got some blue and some white and some red. And essentially what you're doing with this process, for lack of a better way to explain it, is dyeing glue. So I want whatever colors you choose. I mean, you could use multiple colors, you could use 3 colors, any of the above. In mixing your colors, you want to use 1/4 color, 3/4 glue. The glue is what is going to create the transparency in the color, because that is what dries clear. So that's what's going to let the light, if you can kind of see as I come up to light, come through your pigment. So if you want it to be a little bit more opaque, I have some here that have a little bit more opacity to them. If you want a little bit more opacity in your sculpture, that's fine. You can do it that way. So you would just use more color rather than glue. But for our intents and purposes, to get that glass-like effect, you are going to want to add just about 1/4 of color and 3/4 glue. Okay, so after you have your colors mixed and ready, what I want you to do is to get your wire and to cut either 3 to 5 shapes. So cut them and then kind of mold what shape you want. Once you have the shapes, like I said, you just want to make sure that that is as flat and pressed to the table as possible. After that point, I can start with, I'm just going to start with my little one here, with creating the edge first and foremost is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start with my red color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of go around the edge. And it's okay if it spills out, because when I pull out, that's going to come off. And I want to just make sure, I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to make sure it's all covering that wire right there. You want to make sure there's a really clear seal in between where your wire is and where the glue lines up. So you're going to cover all of that. Okay, so then I might move into my next color, and I'm just going to use maybe a little bit of white. I'm just going to let that pour out. Hopefully you get it within the shape. And I'm going to start to just kind of move that around. Take some of that off of there and move that around my design. And the nice thing about this process is it doesn't have to stay, as you can tell, perfectly within the lines of the wiring. Because once you let it dry, you're able to kind of remove any excess paint from the edges that you don't want in. Look, so you can kind of see that I'm starting to get a bit of that marbleized pattern. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue. In. Let that kind of drip, drip, drip. And same thing, I may just use my brush to start to drag out different patterns. I like kind of pulling the red through it to kind of give that interesting effect and line pattern. So I might pull some of my white again from my edge. I'm just going to dot it really carefully. Now there's really no wrong way to kind of play with this. You can do it however you'd like to. And just kind of pull through, let it. The nice thing about the glue is it's pretty leveling when you put it in there. So if you get a little bit more paint on one edge comparative to another edge, it's not going to be too problematic because it'll start to level. I'm just going to take the edge of my brush and just kind of move a little bit of that excess so I have a little less hard of a time peeling that out. Okay, the other thing you can do if you don't want to pour, I'm going to come into this piece right here. Say I was creating a red edge, is I can just start to add that in like so. And just make sure that that paint is connecting to your wire and is flush with that edge. So you can see right here, I missed a little bit of that edge and I have to really seal that in. Because if I have any spacing, then when I go to pull it, it won't mold properly. Now you guys are going to be a lot more patient than I am and do it that way. I am going to go back to my pouring method just because I'm being a little impatient and just kind of fill that in. Okay. So then I'm going to come back in. Same thing, you can see where I'm not flush with the wiring and where I need to add in some of that paint. Okay, and then from there, it's just going to be the same process of adding in some color. I'm going to add my blue sort of in that space. Let it drip. Let kind of the paint organically create some of the patterns within the Chihuly. Adding a little bit of my glued white. Let's see, yeah. And then same thing, I'm going to pick up my brush and then just kind of play with how I want to pattern it, how I want to pull that through. Now, if you like the color of your wire, that's fine. You can also kind of paint over the wire just to make it look more fluid with the piece you're trying to create. So there I've got a couple, and it's okay. You can see I've knocked my wiring a little bit as I'm moving through. Painting that's okay. Just make sure, same thing, you get it back to a point where it's completely lined up with the paint. Okay, so I've got these two. You can see have some pretty patterning going on, and I am now going to have to go through the painstaking process of letting them dry. The tricky thing with these Chihuly pieces is they do take some time to dry. It could be anywhere from 24 hours to even 72. So my piece right here that I'll show you, this one, was probably about a 48-hour process. So just by way of next step, these guys over here are ready to be peeled. So after you let these dry, we'll move these a little bit over. These are ready to go. So what I'm going to do is just very gently peel this from the plastic. You can hear this almost sounds like a sticker coming off. Okay, so I have that piece coming out, and I kind of like this as my exterior to the glass. And then after you pull it off, then you can just start to manipulate it. See, it's very stretchy. And start to pull it. And then you can also kind of bend and play with what sort of shape you'd like it to take. If you look at Chihuly's work, he has kind of those very organic shapes. So maybe I kind of ended it in a shape like so. And then what I would continue to do is peel these pieces. Like I said, you can stretch them as far as the paint will go. It's fine, you're not gonna hurt it. And later, if you wanna add some paint onto your edge to just make that a little bit of a cleaner look, you can. So I would peel them off, and then you can see with this one, I mean, I can take it apart however I'd like to, but I started to fit all of my pieces together to create different sculptural configurations. Anyway, so that's about the process. Feel free to message me, comment if you have any questions. Can help you troubleshoot anything, and hope that everyone's staying sane and creative in this quarantine. Thanks so much.